What do a 20-year nursing career, a real-life goat named Scout, and best-selling children's books have in common? They're all part of today's incredible guest story. In this episode, we explore how growing up in a single-parent home shaped Natalie Horsman's perspective on relationships, co-parenting, and emotional readiness. You'll hear about her bold career pivot into becoming best-selling children's author, creating stories that encourage kindness and curiosity in kids. We dive into practical advice on dating after divorce, balancing creativity with everyday life, and finding magic in the small moments. Whether you are navigating single parenthood, considering a career change, or simply want to be more present with your kids, this conversation is full of heart and wisdom. Let's get into it. Welcome to Single Parent Success Stories, a podcast designed to inspire single parents. Here you'll find resources from self-care to finances to parenting and everything in between. Discover what it takes to thrive. Let the stories inspire you to what is possible. This holiday season, skip the candles and gift cards. Give the woman in your life something that truly matters, or better yet, give it to yourself. The gift inside is for every woman who spent decades being everything to everyone else. It's time to remember who you are and rediscover your happiness. This isn't just a book, it's a permission to put yourself first again. Available now. Because the best gift you can give is helping someone find themselves. Hello and welcome to Single Parent Success Stories. Today we have a special guest, Natalie Horsman. She is a nurse and a best-selling children's author who brings her real-life goat Scout to life through heartwarming stories. Her tales celebrate what makes us unique, the power of kindness, and the magic found in everyday moments. Through her stories, Natalie encourages young readers to embrace curiosity and imagination while discovering the wonder all around them. Natalie also grew up in a single-parent home. Welcome, Natalie. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you so much. I'm very excited to be here. I appreciate it very much.
Thank you. So please share with us, who is Natalie?
Yes. So I like to joke and say I'm a nurse by day and an author by night. That's my current journey. I have, been a nurse for about 20 years. Most of my career was spent in pediatrics. Now I work with adult heart patients, so something completely new, which I have loved and enjoyed doing. And over the last 2 years, I decided I've had this long goal of wanting to write children's books. And I was like, you know what, let's just do it. Let's jump in. Let's see what happens. Here we are. We've got several children's books out and, hope to continue to do it in the future. And I've found it's very interesting how much I've loved the writing process. It's been very cathartic, very fun to tap into that kind of creative side of my brain. So yeah, it's something I love to do. Kind of once work is done, then I jump into the book work and really love it. But yeah, I'm currently in North Carolina, originally from Georgia. And yeah, I grew up in a single parent home. I was divorced when I was very young. Thankfully, I'm very appreciative. My mom married a man who raised me and has been my stepdad now for, over 40 years. And then, the relationships that my dad and I had, as well as he was, married multiple times. And so I've had a lot of experience with step-parents coming and going as I was growing up and kind of understand the impact that they can have to both relationships and children, but also into adults. So yeah, just that's all a little bit about me and my in a brief few seconds. But some of the things I love to do. I love to go to the mountains. I love to read. Love to be out on the water. So yeah, anything outside is what I really enjoy.
Nice. Thank you. So while you were growing up in a single parent home, what challenges did you face? What do you wish was done differently?
I think the biggest challenge for me and my family was the relationship that my mom and dad had. It was very contentious, lots of arguing, lots of tension. And while I was very young and maybe did not understand the full dynamic stuff, I knew something was going on. I knew the two of them did not like each other. I knew it just created a lot of strain, and there was no co-parenting back then. This was back in the 80s. And so it was, my mom pretty much just kind of cutting off relationships with my dad. He was not good at relationships. And so that impacted not only my relationship with my dad growing up, but then my personal relationships then, as I started to get older and dating and things like that. So I think it's the things that maybe you don't realize are occurring in the moment that impact you, later in life. It was interesting too with my mom. She was a nurse. And so what I learned very early on was to, get a job, get a career, be able to take care of yourself because, she was raising me by herself as well. And so, yeah, I think there's a lot of things that you kind of absorb as a little kid that you find out later in life. You go, oh, this is why I'm the way I am, or why this impacts relationships or things like that. But I would say, there was not a good co-parenting relationship with them. And so I certainly felt that as even a little kid, 3, 4, 5 years old.
Totally. And those experiences then, like you said, shape who we become, what happens.
100%. And whether you want to acknowledge it or not, it does. And sometimes it comes back later in life, as you're dealing with your own relationships, and how you navigate those, what it looks like, what your fears are, So yeah, it's very interesting, to kind of look back on those years. And, I think, I grew up in a house where we didn't talk about things very much. So even as I got older, I never really thought to ask questions about the relationship my mom and dad had or to try to understand things. It was just kind of like you just didn't talk about things. You dealt with it. You swept them under the rug. And so, yeah, I spent most of my life not really understanding the dynamics between my mom and dad. So, yeah, that was another area of just not chatting, not talking about things and not asking questions.
What was good? Any positive experiences that
Absolutely. Those are the
can...
hard things. Positive experience. I have the most wonderful memories of, just being with my mom. She was the super mom, went over above and beyond, always always wanting to make sure both myself and then I have a half sister that came later on in life, we're just taken care of and having everything that we need. And again, my mom married my stepdad when I was about 4. And so he was the one that raised me and really kind of gave me that kind of stable family foundation. And, I continued to have a relationship with my dad. It just was not a very deep relationship. I would go and see him on the weekends when, I needed to because they had that kind of shared custody. But we were never really super close. And that was certainly something as I got older, I questioned and didn't really kind of understand. And but, I was very fortunate to have both my mom and stepdad, as I got older and just, some of the best memories. And, so, I mean, it's one of those things where there were challenges and, hiccups along the road, but, was very fortunate with what was there. And my mom always trying to make sure no matter what, we had what we needed. And, it was as stable as possible considering all the other chaos going on around us. So, yeah.
Totally. Thank you so much. What inspired you to transition from nursing to writing children's books, and how has your RN experience shaped your storytelling?
That is a great question. So I will tell you, getting my first book published, that was 20 years in the making. This has been something I had been thinking about a long time. Growing up, I loved books. My mom, my grandmother, my aunt would always read to me. I have the best memories of story times with them. Going to the library, I was a kid with a full stack of books, coming out with them. And it's funny, I have in this bookcase right over here, I have all my books from childhood. So my, again, mom, aunt, grandmother would give me books and they would sign them and write notes in them. And I love, pulling them out, reading those notes, just such wonderful books. And so when I was in my 20s, I had this idea, I'd love to write a children's book. Knew nothing about it, and that's as far as that idea went. I was just like, I'd love to do it. I loved books as a kid. So then 20 years later, I had been telling myself I should do this. I should get to it when I have more time, when I have money, whatever. I finally was over myself. I was like, just either do it or shut up, right? And so I was like, I'm going to do it. So I just sat down and wrote a draft of just a children's book. I didn't know what I was doing, how long, word count, just got it on paper. So then fast forward a year after doing some education, hooking up with a mentor, an editor, I was able to, have my first book come out in November of 2024. And it was very exciting for me personally to finish that from beginning to end and have it out, physically. And it's interesting, the stories that I wrote and are out now are about my adopted goat, Scout. So who is very mischievous, never stays in his pen. He's always in trouble. And so when we were thinking about ideas and topics for the book, he was the first one that came to mind, and he's given me a lot of great content to write about. So he now has 2 stories that are out with more coming. So it's been a very fun, creative journey. I've had to learn a lot. There's a huge learning curve. It's one of those things you don't know what you don't know, but I have enjoyed the process so much that I'm like, ooh, I want to figure out how I can do this forever now, So yeah, it's been a lot of fun for sure.
Nice. Your goat series is so heartwarming. How did Scout came to life, and what was the themes do you hope to the children take away from reading the stories?
Well, I will tell you, Scout, so for anyone who has not experienced goats, they're very just entertaining. He is what's called a dwarf Nigerian, so he's a smaller dog, goat, kind of like a medium-sized dog, and they're very just playful. And so I had the opportunity to kind of be with him when he was born. I got to name him and just spend a lot of time with him. And I started noticing just how fun and silly they are. And to me, they were very much remind me of just a kid, right? Like a real kid, running around, getting into trouble, wanting snacks, very curious. And in my head, I'm like, if he had a voice, this is what he would sound like to me. And he would be asking questions, and he never stays in his pen. He is always finding a way to get out so that he can go see his friends, so he can go eat something, so he can get on the tractor. And I'm just kind of watching this, and I'm like, this is so relatable as not only an adult, but I think a kid can be like, oh, look at this other character that is asking questions, that wants to know what's outside beyond, their environment, who wants to meet new people and experience new things, eat new things. And the stories just kind of came from there. And so the first book, Scout's Muddy Day, really had to do with Scout wanting to get out of his pen, going to see the cows, going to see the pigs, getting all muddy, and then finding his way back home. And so really his own, his real experience kind of helped shape those stories. And my goal is for both adults and kids to see a character that, one, is entertaining, is fun, humorous, but also is relatable because, again, he's asking questions. He wants to know, what is this? Who is this? He's, curious. He's willing to try new things, but also realizing as he gets too far away that he needs to get back home and having someone that's looking at him. So, again, it's just a way to kind of share lessons and joy in a way, a character that just happens to be a goat. Yeah.
So fun.
Yeah.
Being a child of divorce with a stepfather who raised you, how has that shaped your perspective on family and relation?
Yes, so there is no normal relationship. That's one thing I know. I think relationships come in every shape, size, color, dynamic. They're full of joy and chaos. And so I think one thing I have learned growing up, I think I was very hesitant about, kind of serious relationships. I had one that was not very healthy, and after that I was like, I'm okay. I don't need to go through this again. I think had an issue with kind of trust as well. Now in my 40s, someone that's dating, it's taken a lot of reflection, a lot of kind of looking inside, a lot of, therapy, kind of talking through what are the dynamics of my relationship with other people, what am I looking for, and learning to be vulnerable and let that wall down because it was built up and it was very high and very thick. And I think what I learned growing up was that I need to take care of myself. I need to make sure no matter what, I am good. Whatever else happens to come on along the way, fine. But, so I wasn't necessarily open to, I think I was afraid of either being stuck or trapped in a relationship that would not end well, or yeah, I just kind of thought if things are going to go bad, because there was so much divorce in my family, not with just my parents and my dad, grandparents. I mean, it was just what I knew. It was the norm. I was like, I just don't want that. So let's just stay away from relationships. Let's just not do that at all. And so, again, taking a lot of time, working with a therapist, my own reflection to be in a point now where I'm dating someone that has just been wonderful the last few years. He has 3 children. And seeing a dynamic that is so much more healthy than what I experienced as a child, it's really just interesting. I tell him all the time, I'm like, this is weird, but in a good way, to be able to co-parent and have very, nice relationships. Everyone does everything, together, and it's just very different, and it's not what I experienced. So it's taken me time to adjust, to that as well, and be able to understand that things don't have to be full of arguments and, just being mad and contentious and things like that, that you can really have healthy relationships, outside of divorce. So it's really been this very fun, strange journey, over the last few years.
Yes, totally. Life is an interesting journey. We get to have different kind of things experience, and how we respond to them is what determines how our life is gonna shape in the future.
Yes, and I mean, if you have one bad experience, like having a very, unhealthy relationship, I was fine not having to do any of that again. It was not worth it. And so it took a bit of time to be able to trust, get that wall slowly to come down, be more vulnerable, and then be open to a really healthy relationship, and not hold on to that belief that everything's going to end in, an argument or divorce or something really, really bad, So it's taken time to unlearn things that I learned as a very subconsciously as a little kid. And it's interesting to see that kind of stuff pop up, in my 40s, when I hadn't really given it much thought until I needed to, when I was in my own really kind of serious relationship, thinking about what is it that I want? What do I don't want? A lot of it was, I don't want things to be like my parents. So what can I do to be healthier mentally, emotionally, and be ready for a relationship, and really kind of undo a lot of that training, so to speak, as a kid.
Totally, yeah. It takes a lot to unlearn.
It does.
Unhelpful things, even though those things are familiar and that's how we grew up. But knowing now what you know now, you want to do something different, and we got that.
Yes. Yeah, and growing up, I mean, I was used to chaos and yelling and arguments. Like, that was just the norm. And so then later in life, I was like, I don't want that, but it took a lot for me to work out, how do I not, put myself in those scenarios, and then how do I best in my own relationship move forward in a healthy way. And one of the biggest things I've had to learn to do is communicate, because again, growing up, we didn't talk about anything. You dealt with your own problems. It's my mess. I'm going to handle it. And so I've really had to learn to better communicate in the moment and say, hey, I'm really having these feelings. Can we talk about it, instead of me just personally dealing with it? That's been a big, big learning curve too. Because as a little kid, I learned you just don't share stuff. You do it yourself, which has made me very independent, but probably too independent. So it's been, I think there is an extreme. I think that's one of the, I'm going to say, side effects, so to speak, of growing up kind of in a divorced household, one that was just full of a lot of chaos, is that you just learn to deal with things yourself, which is good to a point. And, then I'm in a relationship trying to kind of, like I said, unlearn a lot of that.
Yeah, totally. Do you find that your experiences with complex family relationships influence the themes of kindness, uniqueness, and curiosity in your books?
Yes. It's interesting. In my books, Scout asks questions all the time, which one is something I do like to do. And I think I did a lot as a kid, and that just kind of exploring and wanting to know more of what's out there, instead of just kind of accepting things as is. Scout, like many of us, could just stay in his little spot and never go and learn what is out there in the world, kind of expand his mind, his viewpoint, his own little world. And I love that, through this book, not only for kids, but like people like myself, is, there's more out there. You don't have to hold on to that little belief or that little nugget of information that you've had for so long. There's, other ways to think and feel and experience, and you just have to be open to it. And Scout is very open to new experiences, for sure.
Nice, nice.
Yeah.
Thank you. You've created resources for single parents who are dating. What's one tip you wish every single parent knew before dating?
I would say the number one big thing is to check in with yourself emotionally. Are you ready for that next step? I think a lot of times and I'm just going to say global people, when they either are divorced, separated, or even just dating, move on to the next relationship. A lot of times it's wanting to jump all in right away, wanting to either fill a void, or kind of experience joy, love, happiness that maybe they didn't have before. And what happens is, if you have children in the relationship too, they are going to get the impact of whatever's happening with the parent. So, a parent dives in, they're wanting that new partner to meet the kids right away without checking in with themselves and their kids to make sure, is everyone emotionally ready for this? Do we feel good about this? Are we in a mind and emotional state to where we can take things slow? I think pausing and kind of evaluating how you feel currently, as a single parent, what are you really looking for in a new partner, what it is that you want, and just kind of taking things slowly. It takes time to build relationships. It takes time to build trust. So, and that's for an adult. So as a kid, it's even more complex. It's even more challenging. There are more questions that they have about this new person in their life. And so I would say one thing is just being thoughtful about what is best for you and your children in the moment. And sometimes that's not having that new partner in your life, really the kid's life, right away. It's, still taking time to get to know each other, and then kind of gradually introducing that new partner, into your life, if that's the next step you want to do. But I think jumping in, I can remember as a kid going to my dad's house, and there would be a new step. It's someone I didn't know anything about, and here's your new stepmom. He was married multiple times, again, had challenges with relationships. And yeah, a couple of times I had stepmoms that I didn't know about until I came over to see him one weekend, or in the same token, they would be gone, So I had a stepmom for many years. She had children. They were my family, and then they got divorced and they were gone, and I never saw them again. And so, those are the kind of things that when I'm thinking about, single parents that are dating someone that is a single parent, for me, it's just being thoughtful of the impact that, these choices are going to make on the kids, and how can we, try to keep things as positive as possible. And that a lot of times means taking time, and not rushing into those next steps.
Totally. Yeah, we gotta feel comfortable within yourselves before we start sharing.
Yeah, and what is it that I want? Is it that I am hurt and I'm looking for, a companion? Am I looking for, just something more physical? Am I looking for someone just to, pick me up and give me a hug? Like, what is it that I am needing? Sometimes that person that you're dating is not going to fill that need, right? Like, so you need to kind of have an understanding of what it is that you really want, and it takes time, it takes reflection to really get to that point, so that then you can make choices that are best for you and your children, because it is going to be very impactful for them.
How do you balance your personal life, creative work, and relationships while staying true to yourself?
That is a fabulous question. I only laugh because balance, I'm not really sure I have that right now, but it's, I stay up late writing and working on book stuff, and then in the morning I'm like, oh my goodness, now I need to do my real job. But I love it. And so what I have found right now is, if I working on my book stuff, being creative, it's such a nice break from my nursing job. I really get to turn off that kind of analytical part of my brain for nursing, and I get to tap into something else that I didn't really know I had. And so I am working to kind of figure out how to best balance both worlds, because a lot of times I'm thinking about both at the same time, and I need to really try to separate them a bit more. But literally, nursing is taking place during the day, and then in the evenings I am working on the book stuff. And then outside of that, it's just reminding myself to take a break, right? Take a moment, go outside and enjoy. Don't let things kind of get so wrapped up into things that time is just passing by without me really noticing. And so I've had to be very purposeful in reminding myself, to do those things and not just get so wrapped up into both work and books that I'm kind of missing everything else. And so, yeah, I have to be very conscious of that, just to make sure I don't get so overwhelmed or just so deep into things that I'm, missing the everyday joyful moments that are occurring. So, yeah.
Totally. I can relate to that because my passion is singing and writing as well. And
yeah. Yeah.
But we gotta take a pause. We gotta, because many, if I look back, weekends, they just fly by and I forget what a weekend feels like. Just not do that stuff, but do other things, even though you're passionate about them. But switching gears and being present to life, because life is so fast if we don't take a pause and notice.
100%. I've been feeling that a lot lately. I'm going, wait, how is it already September? Like, where did the last few months go? And things are a blur, and I'm like, I need to kind of recenter, refocus, and make sure I'm enjoying all aspects of my life and not just, diving in and putting my head down and getting to work to where I'm missing these things. And, I had a new book that recently launched, and it was so I was so in the weeds with everything that it took me several days before I paused and went, you can celebrate that you have a new book. You can take a breath. You can enjoy this moment. You don't have to immediately go back to work. And that was an interesting kind of reflection to go, okay, let's slow down. Let's take a breath. And I think I find myself doing that in kind of every aspect of my life now. It's just, you get so busy. You get so bogged down. You're working on whatever's going on with your job, life, kids, that you kind of forget to come up for air and enjoy what's happening. So yeah, I have to be very purposeful and mindful of that. And sometimes I get mad at myself. I'm like, you just got to stop, take a break, go do something else. So yeah.
If Scout could give advice to kids today, what do you think it would be?
Such a wonderful question. He would say, the first thing is to always ask questions. If you want to know what something is, ask, explore. And I'm going to say this with the caveat that this also means, within realms of what is appropriate within and means. So, but yeah, to go explore, to ask questions, to be curious, to want to meet other people that are different than you. He goes on these journeys where he meets other animals and he's like, what are you? Who are you? So asking those questions, he gets to learn about other people, other places, and experience new things. And I think being curious is one of the most wonderful things as a kid that they just kind of have naturally, that sometimes as we move into adulthood, we kind of lose that magical thinking, that wanting to know more and kind of wondering what's beyond. And yeah, that we can go exploring. And I think just being open to those new experiences. Scout goes on these journeys and it just has the best time learning, but also understanding that, the farm is his home and that's where he needs to go back to, but he can go out, meet people, have new experiences, and still go back home and be safe, with his family. So yeah, I would say always stay curious, ask questions, go explore, and see what else is out there.
Yeah, totally. I love it. Thank you. What's one everyday magical moment you want kids or adults to notice and celebrate?
Magical moment every day. It's just, there's so many wonderful things and people around us, and it's just getting to out and seeing those, enjoying meeting new people, having those new experiences. And I would say, yeah, just recognizing, well, really for adults, that time goes by so fast. I know we've already talked about that. So again, it's enjoying the moment as it's happening, being present, and really being able to enjoy it for all that it is, even if it's something just very simple. There's so much joy and happiness to experience. We just have to be present to be able to do that.
Totally. I think being present is key. Otherwise, life is gonna pass you by and you're not even gonna notice.
Yeah, well, agreed. And children have just such an amazing way of just experiencing everything. And I think pausing and kind of seeing the world through their eyes really can open our eyes as adults as well. Again, they're very curious, they're creative, they find joy in a lot of just very, what I'm going to say, simple things. And that is a great lesson for kids of all ages.
Totally, totally. Thank you. Is there anything I haven't asked that you would like to share?
Well, I appreciate talking with you. This has been wonderful. And I think, for me, I have found that children's books has been a great way to connect with people out in the community. And I have found so much joy in providing stories that are relatable for kids and adults. And I would just say, for anyone out there, pick up a children's book. There are so many wonderful ones out there right now for story time for kids. It's a great connection time for parents, grandparents, any adult in a child's life, to sit and read. And again, as an adult, it provides us that opportunity to pause, to enjoy, to take a breath, and have that connection with the kid that is so important. So yeah, I would say, pick up a book, enjoy a story time, and it always makes for magical moments for sure.
Thank you. Thank you so much. If people would like to connect and learn more about you, where would they go?
NatalieHorsman.com. That is my website. I've got the resources for single parents that are dating, as well as information about the children's book. Scout has his own little website, so you can learn all about him, his crazy antics, his videos, very entertaining. And there's, activity sheets and coloring sheets for kids. So yeah, just NatalieHorsman.com. It's all right there.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure to have you, and I'm excited for your new adventures with the books.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. It's been wonderful to talk to you.